Today on Wedding Worthy, we're celebrating the timeless love story of Mac and Denver, a couple whose journey proves that fate always finds a way. After years of friendship, life's twists and turns brought them back together, and once they reconnected, they never looked back. Their wedding was a stunning tribute to love, set at a country club deeply tied to Mac's family history. With a rich color palette, custom details, and a breathtaking glass tent, their fall garden celebration was elegant, personal, and unforgettable. Join us as we relive Mac and Denver's beautifully curated wedding weekend. Welcome to Wedding Worthy, where we celebrate incredible couples and the love stories that shape their perfect day.
Now we're the Taylors.
We're married.
From heartfelt vows to breathtaking designs, every wedding detail reflects the journey that brought them together.
It was everything I could have ever imagined, and I was so happy with how everything had turned out.
So get ready to swoon as we take you inside the most extraordinary weddings and the love stories that make them wedding worthy. You're watching Wedding Worthy, where we believe every couple has a story.
I'm Mac O'Keefe.
I'm Denver Mead.
And we got married on October 26th of 2024. We live in Fort Worth, Texas, and we both work for Denver's family company in accounts receivable management.
I guess we've always had mutual friends. I shouldn't say always, but ever since college. Mac being from St. Louis, he had a lot of friends that either went to TCU or SMU from high school. And so we always kind of knew of each other just from those mutual friends, but we didn't really meet and connect until May of 2018 when we were both in New York for this ALS charity fundraiser event that a lot of Mac's college friends always put on every year.
I think we met, we had all of our friends with us. We instantly became good friends and had a great time together and got to stay in touch over the years. A lot of friends who would get married to each other, and we had
6 months later, we were at the same wedding in St. Louis, and then
we were at Mardi Gras together on the same party bus in St. Louis, and so we got to
with both of our exes,
with both former partners. And as time went on, we just kept running into each other and stayed close.
There was always something kind of there, I will have to say. We both became available, I guess.
Yeah.
And 3 weeks later, I was in Las Vegas visiting Mac at a work conference, and it just happened to be his birthday weekend. So
and then,
technically our first date was in Vegas, but
it was.
Hate to say it, but it's true.
But yeah, and from there we were dating long distance, and here we are.
And that was almost 4 years exactly after we met. I think the first time that we knew that this could be something serious and long-term is actually when we met in New York, or at least I think for me it was, I think for him too, but we were both still dating other people at the time, but like I said, we had those mutual friends and it was kind of just an instant connection, but nothing actually happened until 4 years later.
I think it's also that you're living in different cities, you're dating other people, your life seems great, and it's, you have a connection with somebody, you like them, but it doesn't seem feasible at the time, and so we stayed friends over the years. And then I guess when we both were single and we got to meet each other officially, our first date in Las Vegas, after that weekend, it was like everything was so easy and we had a great time. And again, wasn't expecting the first date to be Las Vegas, but we knew if it could work there, it could work anywhere. So we made it happen.
I guess how we got engaged or how it came about was Mac had just moved down here, which I guess almost 2 years ago from now. And obviously, if he's moving from St. Louis to Fort Worth, there's probably a little more than just we're moving in together that's going to happen.
So at least.
So as soon as he moved in, we were like, changing jobs, moving states, driving a U-Haul down here a couple times. We were like, all right, we need a weekend just to like get away and like not have anything. So we decided to go skiing. That gave us a chance to talk about like the future a little bit. And while we were out there, there's a jewelry store that is a certified dealer for the watches that we were looking at. And at the time, watches were basically impossible to come by, especially new ones like from the store. You could buy them secondhand for a very high markup, but you couldn't just go walk in the store and buy something that you wanted.
I also want to say that coming from someone who likes watches a lot, I don't particularly love or care that much about watches. But when we did go shopping just to have fun and look around at things, there was one watch that I really, really liked a lot, which I was surprised about because I just normally don't get excited about watches, and it's the one that I'm wearing right now. But I knew it was hard, to get, and I also at that moment wasn't looking to actually get a watch. Was just trying to have fun and look at stuff with Denver.
And one of Mac's best friends from high school, his family and him now owns the certified dealer for these watches in St. Louis and is the go-to place, Simon's. So I had already kind of started the process with Jonathan and told Jonathan like what I was looking for and what I thought Mac might like. Well, after we went to Colorado and looked at all these watches, like it was not what I had predicted that he would like. So the day we got back from Colorado, I texted Jonathan. I was like, hey, like, here's what he actually wants. Like, I was wrong. Like, I hope that you haven't got anything in and put anything back for me, yada, yada. And he texted me back immediately and says, call me now. So I call him. He goes, I just got this watch in that you're wanting 2 days ago. It doesn't have anyone's name on it yet. I haven't even like logged it into our system that it's been received. Like if you want it, it's yours. So I immediately was like, well, he's not going to get another one. He told me that. He was like, I'm not going to get another one for at least a year. So I took that as a sign to just bite the bullet and wasn't really expecting to make that kind of purchase at that time. But, I was like, all right, here we go. So bought it, and thankfully Jonathan kept it for about 4 months until I decided what I wanted engraved on the back, and then had it engraved, and I picked the day that I was going to do the proposal, and proposal happened 5 months after I bought it, I think.
I wouldn't have been able to wait that long.
That's a whole other subject.
Yeah, I would have done it like the next day. There's no way I could have actually planned that out and held on to something for 5 months.
No.
But thank you.
I had Timing is Everything, Love DLM engraved on the watch. Timing to watch. Not to be like kitschy or like cliche or anything, but like we really do say like from the time we met, like even though we did have a connection instantly, like there's a good chance like it probably wouldn't have worked out in those stages of our lives.
Right.
So, yeah, that's another timing is everything aspect to it. It's like, we had to wait and be a little patient for everything to work out and the timing to work out, and timing is everything. So
he proposed to me in our kitchen on a Saturday morning. We had gone out the night before, went to a friend's dinner party. I wasn't feeling my tip top, we'll put it lightly, and I was making a smoothie and was saying, we should go pick this up and go do these errands. And he has this whole plan of throwing a party that evening. Friends are flying in town. And I'm like, let's go look at, let's go to the grocery store. And
meanwhile, one of his best friends is like getting her nails done, like a few blocks away, just kind of waiting for me to say go or like what the plan is. Because there really wasn't a plan except for just that night. I had no idea where I was going to propose, like what I was going to do. It just kind of like happened. And
then
I was sitting on the couch and saw him making this smoothie.
I was eating peanut butter.
Yeah, not in the best state. I was like, this is kind of the perfect situation.
So he proposed to me. He got down one knee. I'm in the middle of eating peanut butter, and I look down, and he's holding a watch, and his eyes look all,
Which I was like
teary-eyed.
very cool, calm, and collected, like the entire time, except for that.
Yeah. You looked a little googly-eyed. He's down on one knee. I see him holding a watch. I'm eating peanut butter. And I see the watch, and in my mind, it's like, oh, that was the watch I really liked in Colorado.
You're kind of like this asshole.
And I thought, I was thinking to myself, like, that's really weird that he's, like, proposing to me with maybe this watch he bought for himself, or, and I'm like, oh, that's a good-looking watch. What are you doing down there? And then I'm like, oh, he's proposing to me right now. This is actually happening. And so obviously I said yes, and it was just the perfect moment. It wasn't anything. We weren't on some random island or anything. It was just sitting in our kitchen, me not feeling my tip top on Saturday morning and eating peanut butter.
Yeah. Then we went to lunch at one of our favorite places. Weather was nice. And as we're having lunch, here come three of his best friends, like popping over a boulder. He still had no idea that they were in town. And
so that was a huge surprise.
Another little shell shock of the day. And
Denver's really good at like planning things out, and I'm not as great about planning things out. So I just thought that was it. I was eating breakfast in our kitchen, and I got an engagement watch, and I was like, well, we're getting married. And I didn't even imagine that friends were coming in town. That later that evening, there's a huge cocktail surprise party, which I had literally thought we were just going out to dinner with our friends and some family. So he did a really good job with it all. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. I went to St. Louis Country Day School, MICDS for high school, and then I went to the University of Virginia for college. I have a very large extended family in St. Louis. Growing up, a lot of cousins, aunt and uncle lived on the same street where I grew up, grandmother just around the block. It was, honestly, I loved how I grew up with my family, with my friends, and we ended up getting married in St. Louis, which made it extra special.
St. Louis.
Yeah.
It's fun.
My mother passed away about 10 years ago. So she obviously couldn't be at the wedding, but we ended up having a lot of things at the wedding that made it special and made it feel like she was with us. And my parents actually ended up getting married. They did get married at the same venue where we got married, which made it special in St. Louis.
Yeah. And your grandparents and great-grandparents also had wedding-related events there. So there wasn't really a discussion when we decided, or when we were talking about where we were going to get married with my parents. It was kind of like, well, I think we're doing it in St. Louis. So
when I first got to introduce, when I first brought Denver around my family, they heard of him from us, dating long distance, and then they got to come in town. And I think one of the first family things we did together were just cocktails with my grandparents. My grandmother, her nickname's Kitty, and she's 91 years old. And my grandfather, we just call him Jim, had cocktails at their house, and they were all excited. They loved that he was from Texas, and they couldn't quite remember his name, though. His name's Denver, and every other sentence was Dallas, or
Austin. Jim likes to call me El Paso, just for
Jim,
fun.
Now he's just El Paso because the Denver thing was really tough. They couldn't figure that one out, but they loved him. They'd say goodbye, Dallas. We'll see you later, and you just kind of roll with that. And to this day, my grandparents call him El Paso.
I am born and raised Fort Worth, Texas. We are still here. I have never left. I went to TCU, Texas Christian University, and it's based here. So yeah, Fort Worth through and through. My family, in short, I'm an only child. My mom is from Fort Worth. My dad is from Oklahoma, grew up on a cattle ranch. I grew up kind of in the in the horse industry. Instead of playing, football or whatever it was, I rode cutting horses. And that's what I did. And I competed nationally, and I traveled as much as I needed to show, whether it was California, Georgia, wherever it was. As soon as I went to college, I discovered a social life and having fun and, being in a fraternity and all that kind of stuff. And horses, hate to say it, went out the window.
I will say I still would tell everyone to this day that Denver's like a cowboy or Yellowstone or whatever you want to call it. So that was always a big intro, and he's like, I haven't done that in quite some time.
It's been 15 years.
But I like to say that he's still a cowboy.
It's still in me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first time that you met my parents, since I'm my only child, there wasn't really much to go off of. They kind of knew. They were like, well, I think this is it. I think this is the one. Like, especially after 3 weeks after me becoming single, I told my mom, I was like, I'm going to Vegas this weekend to see a guy. And at first she was like, are you serious? Like, really? And then I'm like, no, it's not like that. It's different. And then when she finally met Max, she was like, oh, this is different.
I also, after lunch, after meeting his parents, they're like the sweetest people ever. They like really love each other and are really kind to each other, which is like a little different from how maybe my parents were growing up. So I started crying, I think, a little bit on the way to the airport.
I was like, oh my God, they're so sweet to each other. I'm like, okay.
And I'm like, not used to that. Normally I'm used to like some jabs and, and his parents were like, just his dad and his mom they mentioned so many times how much they loved each other. And I thought it was the sweetest thing ever. So yeah, I was excited to meet them, and I think we had a good first meeting. They didn't see me cry.
You do a long distance relationship. You've known somebody for so long, and like, yes, you're such good friends, but like the time that you're together when you're visiting, it's still just like 3 days. You're not living with somebody. So I will say, like, and it's a good thing and a bad thing. Like the biggest adjustment we've had to do is when we moved in together and just getting used to each other's odd quirks or whatever it was, just, living with another person, no matter who you are, there's always going to be something you do differently. And we do obviously some stuff differently because we're different people. And so it's just that was a little bit of an adjustment. Like I said, not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just like, it just is what it is. It's
when you're in a relationship, it's two completely different lives coming together. You grew up a different way. You care about a lot of things we care about are very similar. We do things differently,
communicate a different way, though.
And you go from, especially if you're long distance, you go from hanging out, for long weekends, and then you are spending
24/7.
Especially when you work together, that's a whole nother dynamic to it. So it was definitely for us. It went from like 0 to 100. It felt like where we moved in together, our dogs. Everything, my stuff came in here, and we just kind of started making our life together.
Leading up to the wedding, I would say we each did normal bachelor parties with like friends from home or fraternity brothers or whatever. Like Mac went to Chicago, I went to Montreal. You had about 20 guys on yours, and I think there was a total of 10 on mine. And then obviously, like, we have some very good girlfriends. So we, instead of like doing another trip and just kind of being the only guy on the trip, we decided to do a joint trip together with both of our good girlfriends and us to Palm Beach, Florida. And there was 16 or so people on that. And that was a lot of fun. I mean, every trip was a blast.
I think it was a great way for us to both do separate bachelor trips with the guys, and then for our kind of like mutual girlfriends all get together and get away and do something together on a trip. It made it definitely a fun dynamic with the friend groups all getting together and people getting to meet before the wedding.
Did the rehearsal dinner at Deer Creek Club in St. Louis, and it's another very cool venue that a long time ago was a hunting lodge that is now an event space, a dinner club for members and stuff. So we had the rehearsal dinner there, and it was great, and everybody loved it. And then we had our welcome party, which ended up probably being about 180 people come to the same location after the rehearsal dinner was over.
Yeah, it's an awesome place. It was
a special aspect of it.
Yeah, there's a slide that they pull out that takes people from a balcony down to the main dining dance floor. So everyone,
it's like a big metal slide that it literally hooks onto the balcony. You climb between the balcony rails that was looking over where we were having dinner, and especially after a few drinks and stuff, it's a party.
It's a lot of fun. Most people aren't expecting to go to a rehearsal dinner and go down an old metal slide
holding a martini or something.
Yeah. So that was definitely fun. Denver and I got married on October 26th of 2024 at a country club where my family and I grew up going in St. Louis, Missouri.
When we started talking to my parents about where we were going to have it and, all the things that you have to talk about when starting to plan a wedding, we really felt strongly that we wanted to do it at the same place where Mac's parents got married, and his grandparents and great-grandparents also had wedding-related events at the club. It was just something that we really wanted to do, especially since Mac's mom is no longer with us. Like, we thought it would be a really special aspect to, even more so have her there with us that weekend.
And it's also, on top of it just being a special place for my family, it's an awesome, beautiful place. And it made, I think, a lot of the decisions that we had to make during the actual wedding process easy. If you have a fun, pretty venue, you don't have to worry about some of the other choices.
We tried to keep things pretty simple and not really go crazy or over the top with things. I know some people would say otherwise, but weddings can be crazy, and we really tried to keep things as dialed down and just great and true to us as possible.
Also, with the timing of the wedding being the fall, it wasn't super hot outside. It was a little risky because we wanted to do a lot of things
outside.
Yeah,
a lot of the areas that we used for the wedding, most people tent those just out of precautionary measures, and we chose to take a chance. And if there was rain, we were just gonna have a different layout and do a lot of stuff inside that we hadn't planned on. Thankfully, everything worked out, and we truly could not have asked for better weather.
Yeah, it wasn't 110 degrees, which
it was perfect.
I struggle with a little bit, being in a tux. So I think a lot of the wedding was actually planned around Mac not having to be in a tuxedo in July in Texas or St. Louis. So being in October was the perfect time for us to do it.
We really wanted it to be like a guy's wedding, and it be very nice and a traditional wedding, but it not be like all these pastel colors and flowers everywhere and over the top, and just that's just not really us.
It was two guys getting married, so we had to, we didn't want it to be too whimsical. But I think color-wise, we thought greens and some browns.
Neutrals, and really just help keep it basic, but also warm at the same time. And I would say it was pretty different.
Simple. It was simple. The first guest came. Everyone were seated. We were sitting in a back room in the clubhouse. It was me, Denver, and your mother, and we were sitting in a back room, kind of watching everyone outside getting seated. And I wasn't expecting to see my grandmother, and then I see her being pushed in a wheelchair across the lawn to be seated. And in the back of my mind, all I could think was she wouldn't want anyone to see her be pushed out there.
Right now.
Yeah, she would not be happy. So I'm kind of oh no, this should have been done differently. So she's, being wheeled out there. I can see her saying, "Oh, I don't want to be anywhere near here," and they're slowly pushing her to the front. And I'm "Oh man, this is going to be interesting." So that was Actually, it was just kind of funny.
No, it was funny. It was sweet because we weren't expecting her. So that was a great moment, but also just like hilarious because
I kind
just
of
knowing her, she wouldn't have want anyone to see her being pushed out in a wheelchair. She would, if she had it up to her, she'd be walking out in stilettos.
Yeah.
But she just didn't get her way. So.
Yeah. So she got pushed out there, and then we walked down the aisle, and that was one thing that we weren't really sure about how to do since my two guys, and my mother isn't with us. My dad unfortunately couldn't be at the wedding, so it was like, how do we
make this as normal as possible without like it being weird that two guys are getting married?
Well, yeah, so we ended up walking together. We walked Denver's mom down the aisle, which ended up being really sweet and special. I think that ended up being a really special part of the whole day, actually, because I feel like she's kind of, she's really taken me in and been an incredible mom to me as well. So it was nice to kind of share that moment and start off the ceremony.
And it was her day too, anyways. I mean,
it was. She was a big proponent and big piece of
the planning process. And making the wedding happen.
Yeah.
For the reception, what I just keep hearing over and over again from our guests and friends is everybody was talking about the energy. Yes, it was great. In my opinion, we threw a beautiful wedding, and it was a lot of fun with a lot of great aspects, but everybody was just there having so much fun. They were so happy to be there to celebrate us, and it's just what I keep continually hearing is everybody said it was just the energy. Like, everybody was feeding off of each other, they were feeding off of us, and it wasn't wild, but it definitely made for a good time.
Yeah, everyone seemed like they're having a great time. It wasn't, it was easy.
Feed, like whatever wedding you're at, you feed off the couple, and I feel like we were obviously happy to be there, and we like to have a good time, and everybody fed off that, and it was just kind of a domino effect throughout the evening.
I'd say one of the top memories was just both of us crowd surfing in the tent, which was a fun moment. And also when we took a photo on a staircase where both of my parents actually took a photo the same place on their wedding day.
They did their exit photo in the same spot.
And so that was fun to do it exactly where they had done it, and was definitely a special moment for our wedding. I'm most excited about for us as a married couple is to eventually start the family process and kids. I just think it'll be such a fun aspect to just our lives and having a growing family. And I want like four or five kids, and that number we've kind of
we're gonna shave that down a little bit.
But either way, even if it's one kid or whatever it is, I'm excited to start a family with Denver.
I would say my favorite aspect of Mac is he is everyone's favorite person. He is the most dynamic person in the room. He's the most lovable. Any room you walk into, you're just going to be the easiest, most favorite person to talk to and hang out with.
Thank you. I would say that my favorite thing about Denver is that I've never felt more comfortable and just easy around somebody else. Sometimes it can be stressful being in a relationship and awkward, and I feel like I always just feel like I'm my best self and having the best time with him, and he makes me feel like difficult things are easy. And so I think it's just that kind of partnership where it's right and that this is the right person for you. That's probably my favorite thing about you.
I will say, like, both of our answers kind of play into the first time we met. It's like, I immediately was like, oh my gosh, this is my new best friend. Like, this guy's awesome. But then also, like, it was just a very easy, comfortable aspect to things too. So
it's nice when you're your spouse is your best friend. It definitely makes for an awesome marriage, and obviously there are difficult parts, but overall, life's a lot more fun and easier when you're best friends.
You're watching Wedding Worthy, where we believe every couple has a story.